Welcome to Topics. I'm Phil Gallagher, along with my guest today, Chloe Briskin. Welcome to the program, Chloe.
Thank you very much.
Chloe is the Assistant Director at Drumlin Farms. She works for Mass Audubon, and you're also the Assistant Director in Natick at Broadmoor.
Yes, the Assistant
Right.
Camp Director.
Okay. And that's Broadmoor Wildlife Sanctuary.
Correct.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning and find out how you got an interest in either ornithology or conservation in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not much of a birder myself. I would like to be, but I'm definitely working on those skills still. And one of the great things about working in this field is that I get to constantly be learning. But I think really my history in the field goes back all the way to childhood. Mm-hmm. I was definitely the type of kid who in my front yard is turning over rocks and looking for salamanders and pulling out my magnifying glass and trying to kind of uncover all these mysteries of nature that are just around us all the time, no matter where you live. And I grew up going to Drumlin Farm with my dad and my family. I grew up in Lexington, so I'm not so far away. Right. So it's a really special place to me, and it's always been really special to me. And I went to college for biology in the hopes of kind of going into this environmental education field. And throughout my time in college, actually worked as a camp counselor at Drumlin Farm, teaching about nature and science and farming and agriculture and sustainability. And after graduation, moved out to California and worked full-time at outdoor schools out there for a few years. Mm-hmm. And then once I saw that this job opened at Drumlin Farm, I had to come back for it because I just love it so much. Sure. And it's such a special place.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Mass Audubon. As I told you, I'm informed just enough to be misinformed. Mm-hmm. I thought originally Mass Audubon was started by James Audubon, the ornithologist, which since he died in 1851, and Mass Audubon started in 1903, apparently he wasn't around to do that. So what is the origin of Mass Audubon?
Yeah, so Mass Audubon was originally started as a way to kind of fight for conservation based on the fact that back in the old days, it was a fashion trend for women to wear hats that had these extravagant feathers on them and sometimes entire birds on them. And these two women saw all these birds on the hats, all these crazy decorations, and oftentimes birds that were endangered or struggling or threatened, and sometimes because of them being used for fashion. And so these two women kind of saw that and wanted to fight up against it, and worked towards creating laws to protect that. And that's kind of the origin of how Mass Audubon came to be. And we continue to carry forward that legacy by, putting forth laws for conservation and protecting lands and wildlife in Massachusetts.
Right. So at that point, the fashion industry is the impetus for conservation, and
Right.
that they were driving, in some cases, some species completely out of existence.
Exactly.
I think I'm not sure the carrier pigeon was on anybody's hat, but that's nearly extinct or is extinct at
Correct,
this point,
yeah.
this point. So let's talk about Drumlin Farms. Where did that originate? Drumlin must have donated it at some point in time?
Yeah, so the land on Drumlin Farm it was always a farm, so it was a farm before it came to us, and the owners at some point donated it to Mass Audubon. And it's a really special space because we get to have this livestock and all these fields, and also have the wildlife conservation aspect at the same time. So one of the really special things about that is the opportunity to kind of talk about the ways that our food systems interplay with wildlife and conservation. And there's really such a tight connection between the two, especially given farming industry being one of the greatest contributors to climate change. So we talk about that a lot, and we get the opportunity to talk about sustainable farming practices and how those can kind of impact our environment.
Well, let's talk about sustainable farming. I mean, you talk about CO2 in the atmosphere. It's 0.41% of the atmosphere, but without CO2, you don't have farming, right?
Right.
So what is sustainable? How is that defined?
So some of the things that we do at Drumlin Farm in our fields when we're growing crops to maintain sustainability is, one thing is we don't irrigate at all, so there's less water usage, and we're really lucky to be able to do that because of the location that we're in. The space that our fields are in kind of a pocket of land that is thought to maybe have once been a glacial lake. So we've got uphill in sort of all directions, and all of the water just kind of
yeah.
right, and all the water just kind of collects there. So there's no irrigation, and the crops are able to thrive in that environment. And in addition to that, we rotate our crops out so that we're not growing the same things in the same fields year after year, and some fields will be given like 2 to 3 years of rest in between having crops, where we'll plant cover crops like clover and rye, things that fix the nitrogen in the soil and kind of replenish all of the nutrients that the plants need to grow, and then get tilled into the soil to help. And we also use our compost from the farm to help all the plants grow. So not using everything's organic, no irrigation. So all of that is really helps kind of prolong the health of our fields and our soils.
Right. Now, when someone visits, obviously, I think in 1934, Drumlin started the school program, the camp program. So what are some of the programs beyond sustainable farming that you're introducing children to?
So right now we're doing both online and in-person programming for children, adults, people of all ages. We have teen programs as well. We really feel like one of the most special things about our programs is that people can come into them with any level of comfort and knowledge of nature and find a place that they can feel comfortable and excited and find fun things that fit for their needs and for their likes. We're not just about birding. I think a lot of people hear Audubon and think birds, and we do have a lot of bird programs, but there's really something for everybody. Like I said, I'm not a birder myself. So we do summer camp is kind of my big thing that I'm involved with, and we've just started our registration for that last week. So registration's open at Drumlin Farm and Broadmoor both. And then in addition to summer camp, we also have vacation week camps. So we'll have a camp in February and we'll have one in April as well. February camp registration is open now, and April camp registration will open in mid-February. And then, addition to that, we have all of our kind of just like ongoing one-off programs and shorter series programs.
So give us some examples of what programs are involved in the summer camp. Obviously, you have a large variety of them.
For sure, yeah. So at Drumlin Farm, we have summer camp for ages 4 all the way through high school. Are
they segregated by age groups?
They are, yes. Okay. So a lot of our programs are a mix of farming and nature programming. So they'll have theme days, and each day will have either a farm-based theme or a nature-based theme. So you might have a day that's your cow day, and on that day you go and you milk the cows, and you also learn about the dairy industry and how that kind of impacts the climate. And you might do some cooking and make some ice cream and kind of learn all about those food systems and their connections with nature. And then maybe the next day you go out into the forest and you do some nature exploration out there. So it's definitely a mix. Some age groups are more farm focused, some age groups are more nature focused. And then for teenagers, we have a counselor and training program for teens who are hoping to one day become counselors at camp. So they'll get kind of leadership training and training on how to work with kids and how to teach to kids, and they get to try out a lesson plan. So we have that program that's available by application. And then we also have an environmental leadership program, which is all based around climate and kind of becoming a climate activist, and how to advocate for climate change mitigations in your community. And how to kind of look at that picture based on where you live. So we're doing that program at all 3 Metro West sites. That's Drumlin, Broadmoor, and Habitat.
Habitat, where is Habitat?
Habitat is in Belmont.
It is, okay. So this is a large operation. How big an operation are you there? How large is it first? Is it 4,000 acres? Does that ring a bell? I mean,
I don't know off the top of my head. We're constantly kind of expanding and buying new lands, so that number changes quite a bit, so it's hard to keep up with it. Are we talking how big we are Mass Audubon or how big we are Metro West?
Well, let's start from the bottom. How big is Drumlin?
So Drumlin Farm, I don't know exactly the acreage. Again, we're always kind of expanding.
In terms of an operation. How many people have you got working there? How many kids are in the program on a daily basis? What's your maximum capacity?
Yeah, so it varies from year to year. Obviously, right now, some things have changed a little bit because of the pandemic. So we're a little bit at lower capacity right now. I think we have a little bit over 200 campers that'll be coming per week. In a normal season, we might have as many as 350 coming per week, so it's a pretty big camp program. As far as the operations at Drumlin Farm, we've got a lot of different departments going on who are doing different things, and we're also located right across the street from Mass Audubon headquarters, so we've got the headquarters people over there too. We have our whole education department, and then obviously we have teams of people taking care of livestock, teams of people who are taking care of the fields and the planting and all of that, and then our admissions team. So it's pretty big team. Yeah.
Now, you have volunteer opportunities there for those types of things?
We do, yeah. There are volunteer opportunities mainly for folks that are, I believe the age limit is 15 or 16 and older. And those volunteers do things like helping out in the fields with harvesting, and we have volunteers who help out with the livestock, and will help care for the goats and the sheep and the chickens. And then we also have volunteers who do things like trail work and helping us create new trails or clear trails that haven't been maintained for a while. And those volunteer opportunities, again, are at all 3 sanctuaries in the Metro West area.
Now, just in addition to camps, you also have a daily population that's coming in there as well.
Right, correct. Yeah, we're open to the public 6 days a week. The only day we're closed is Monday. So folks can come in and visit any of those sanctuaries anytime during those hours that we're open throughout the week.
And how about outreach? How do you get all these little kids in there?
Well, so
Probably
by
by
now,
word of mouth
right,
at
by
this
now
point,
we're pretty
right?
much word of mouth. It is a pretty popular camp program, and people definitely talk about it. So we get a lot of interest at Drumlin Farm, especially. Broadmoor, we're still kind of building up that community. And I think, we share resources from sanctuary to sanctuary. So oftentimes we're kind of advocating for folks to come to more than one camp. They offer different opportunities. So we definitely try to kind of get the word out about all of the camps that we offer. We also, have a Facebook and Instagram that folks can find.
Social media's helped quite a bit.
Social media helps for sure. And then it's just, I think a lot of word of mouth. And people know about Drumlin Farm from coming with their families and just visiting regular admissions. So I think folks want to come. Yeah.
Right. Now, what about Broadmoor? You said that's relatively new. We'll talk about the whole Metro West and the state organization.
Yep.
But let's go to Broadmoor. You say it's relatively new. Is that a new acquisition?
I wouldn't say it's new. It's been around for a while. I think the camp community is still being built up a little bit more there so than Drumlin. I think folks know more about Drumlin than they know about Broadmoor. Drumlin's one of the bigger sanctuaries that Mass Audubon owns, or one of the more kind of well-known ones with more robust programming. So our camp community, I would just say our camp sessions feel a little bit slower for Broadmoor, but it's a really special community. I think the camp is a lot smaller there, so we only have, I would say, 50 or 60 campers per week, so much smaller. It's much more like intimate setting, and some camp families really prefer that kind of setting rather than the hustle and bustle of having all these tons of camp groups running around. It's much more nature focused. There's no farm there, so they're doing a lot more outdoor wildlife type programming. Broadmoor is a beautiful location on a wetland, and so they have the opportunity to explore these awesome wetlands there and do a lot of pond explorations, water explorations, and see what kind of creatures they can find in there. So it's a really special program. Definitely still trying to let people know that it's so special, but we're getting there for sure.
Every kid loves a swamp.
Absolutely. Who doesn't? I do.
Now, what else is in Metro West? You mentioned Belmont. I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah, Habitat Sanctuary in Belmont. Again, it's not necessarily smaller in size, but smaller maybe in programming than something like Drumlin Farm. Folks might not know about it as much, and it's sort of tucked away in a place that you wouldn't expect to find a wildlife sanctuary, which honestly, again, I think makes it kind of special. But they've got lots and lots of trails there that are really beautiful that you can walk through. There's a pond. There's a lot of forest land there. And they keep goats there as well, so they've got a little bit of that farming experience.
Well, that's to keep down the underbrush,
right? The goats are used mostly, I was going to say, for conservation and maintenance. Right, exactly. I mean, they bring them out around and they help them. They help clear invasives because they'll eat anything. So that they're definitely used for.
I know that because I've seen them on golf courses. So
people rent them out for that purpose. So it's great. They're great for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And birding programs there?
Yeah, at
tell
all
us
three.
about the birding program.
Yeah, there are birding programs at all 3 sanctuaries, and across the state there's online birding programs as well. If someone's just looking to get started with birding, we have definitely some beginner birding programs. So if you don't have a lot of experience in that area but you're interested in it, that's a really good place to start. To help you kind of identify just some basic backyard species that you might see at home. And then, of course, we have in-person birding programs as well. Some of the sanctuaries do morning bird walks that you can do just kind of on a weekday and go join. Go for a nice, relaxing birding walk in the morning. It's very calm and quiet, and I think a lot of people find a lot of serenity in doing birding programs because it's very slow-paced and you're just looking and listening. And we also have a teen birders program. So if there are teenagers who are interested in getting into birding, we have that program available as well.
Now, obviously, the ornithologist Audubon was major impetus here, but there was a couple of things that occurred in the past in which Audubon was was instrumental in a number of pieces of legislation on bird protection, I think the Florida Everglades. But two people that had a huge impact were Rachel Carson and Roger Torrey Peterson. After, what was it, Silent Spring, right? Mm-hmm. After Silent Spring, did Audubon explode in terms of interest nationally?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how the interest in it changed after that. I wouldn't be surprised if it did, though. Obviously Silent Spring is very connected to birds and the use of DDT and the impact it had on bird reproduction. So it's definitely something we talk about. I'm not sure if it changed the interest, but I imagine it must have. I think.
Well, it did to the extent that this part I know it did result. Their efforts resulted in the banning of DDT.
Right, exactly. And I think Rachel Carson is a name that a lot of folks know, even if they're not involved in conservation. So it's a great kind of entryway.
Right. Roger Torrey Peterson, of course, for those of you who are interested in birding, wrote the North American Guide to. A field guide to North American birds, which I still have an old dog-eared copy that my mother gave to me.
And I think field guides are a great way to kind of get that introduction, because anyone can just go to the bookstore and buy a field guide. I know I had as a kid it's just like the Field Guide to North America, and it's got a little bit of everything in it, and that was like my prized possession. Absolutely. So I think that's a great way. You can just go out in your neighborhood, see what you can find, test your ability to identify things and find them in your book, and definitely a great way to get your introduction.
Now, that was Metro West. Those three are in Metro West.
Right.
What else do we have in the surrounding areas that might be of interest for people who have already explored those?
Well, we have sanctuaries all the way across the state. So I believe there's over 100 sanctuaries, some of them staffed, some of them not, land that's conserved by us. And we even have some space up in New Hampshire. We have a camp up there as well. So pretty much anywhere in the state that you're looking to explore nature, you can probably find a Mass Audubon sanctuary to do it at. We've got some on the coast that are kind of more, coastal focused. Yeah, sure. We've got some out on the islands if you want to go out to Martha's Vineyard and see a Mass Audubon sanctuary. We've got some way out in the Berkshires. So anywhere that you're looking to explore, you can definitely find a sanctuary there that's offering programs, has folks to walk you around, experienced naturalists who can tell you about the wildlife. So we're pretty much everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Now, let's make a pitch for membership. You can be a member of Mass Audubon. You can be a donor, obviously, but what are the levels of membership and what does it offer in terms of benefits to the member?
Yeah, we have various different levels of membership. Personally, I don't know each of them intimately and the levels that they talk about, but there's information about all of them on our website. So you're not hustling at the camp for members, huh? Well, we do offer a pretty significant camp discount for members, and so that's a pretty big appeal, I think, for a lot of folks who are looking to get into membership. We have an individual level membership if you're just a single person who's interested in visiting sanctuaries, and that'll allow you to get into the sanctuaries for free. At a family level membership, you'll get discounts as well, so that's usually what our camp families opt for, is a family level membership. Again, you'll get into any sanctuaries for free, but you also start to get discounts on programs as well, and usually the discount's about 20%. So for camp programming, it's pretty significant. Usually the cost of a membership is less money than what it will save you for your camp membership, so it's definitely worth it to do it if you're registering for camp or if you're registering for a lot of other programs. And then, obviously you get the benefit of hearing about what's going on with us as well when you have a membership, because you'll be added to kind of our email list. You'll get our monthly publication at your home. So you can read about the latest in what's happening as far as conservation movements that we're pushing towards, programs that we're working on, and whatever other happenings might be happening across the state.
So let's say I'm a 4th or 5th grader and I want to go to camp. It's a week-long camp, right?
We have options for week-long and 2-week-long camps, both at Drumlin and at Broadmoor, so it really depends what you're interested in. Right. At Drumlin Farm Camp, we have week-long options that are kind of more themed, and so we'll have, like, if you're in 4th grade, for example, you can opt to go to one of our Farmyard Frolics camps, which is a week that's very farm-focused.
Farmyard Frolics. I wouldn't say a 19th century farmer would call it frolicking. Right?
Probably not, but maybe a 4th grader.
Yes.
So we have those camps available at the beginning and end of the summer that are much more focused kind of on the farm side of things for families who are really looking to get their kids involved with the farm chores and meeting the livestock and going out into the fields. And then we have our 2-week camps that are more kind of what I described before, a mix of nature and farming activities.
Right. Now, these are day camps or night camps or both?
They are day camps for the most part. So we have day camps for everybody up through age 12. And then once you kind of reach that age, you have some options that are overnight. So we have programs that do a single overnight at our sanctuary. So both at Broadmoor and at Drumlin Farm. In the second week of camp, their very last day, on their Thursday of their second week, we'll do an overnight on the sanctuary. And that's a really special opportunity for them to kind of get to bond with their team. The pace is a little bit slower that day because they have so much time, so they're not trying to get everything in. And then they set up tents at the sanctuary and they sleep outside in the tents. Which for a lot of the kids that come and do that program, it's their first time sleeping in a tent, sometimes their first time sleeping outside of their home.
First time campfire.
Campfire, s'mores, stargazing, so that's really special.
Right.
Yeah. And then we're hoping this summer to bring back a program that we call Voyagers, which is for 12 and 13-year-olds, and that is a program that does trips across the area and Massachusetts and the larger kind of New England area. So on the first...
Visiting the other Audubon sites?
Sometimes, yes. So on the first 2 days of every week, so it's a 2-week program, but the first 2 days of the week, so Monday and Tuesday of both weeks, they'll do day trips that are within kind of a local-ish area. And then the Wednesday through Friday, they'll do a 2-night overnight somewhere in the area as well. So some of those will be going out to the Berkshires. Some of them go up to New Hampshire and explore the White Mountains. Some of them will go down to Connecticut and explore the rivers there. Some of them will go out to the coast and explore the Cape and definitely have the opportunity to see other sanctuaries and other just like general conservation land that might be in those areas.
Okay, so what's your daily routine? Obviously, you must have direct influence with the children, the campers, etc., on a daily basis.
Yeah, so for me personally, as a member of the administrative team of camp, usually I will work mostly out of Drumlin Farm, but sometimes I take days at Broadmoor as well. Broadmoor also has a site coordinator, so usually myself and the camp director as well will be on site at Drumlin and occasionally taking a day or two at Broadmoor to help with supervision there. But as kind of a supervisory member, we'll be checking in with camp staff throughout the day and seeing if anyone needs anything. We do a lot of kind of running around the sanctuary, getting our steps in, visiting different camp groups and seeing what's going on, helping with behavioral needs, communicating with parents. So it's really just kind of what's needed on a day-to-day basis, which can vary from each day.
Well, let's talk administratively. What kind of impact has the pandemic had? Obviously on your attendance, your population, has it affected your staffing levels? Has it affected the budget, etc.?
Yeah, so it has made definitely an impact. Obviously, everyone's been impacted by it. We were really lucky, I think, because given that our organization is so outdoor focused, we've been able to continue to have robust programming throughout the pandemic. And obviously, we've had some cutbacks and we've lost some staff, which has been really, really hard for everybody. But we definitely have had the opportunity to see folks coming out who wouldn't necessarily have come and visited our sanctuaries in the past. A lot of other places have been closed, especially in 2020, and we definitely...
Indoor activities, certainly. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, and I think we're starting to see people make connections to nature that were different than connections that they might have made in the past or new to them, or they haven't been to a Mass Audubon sanctuary before and they're trying it out for the first time because that's what's available. So we actually, I would say, towards the beginning of the pandemic, in a lot of ways we're seeing kind of upward mobility in our programs and more interest than we had in the past because that's what folks can do that safely and feel comfortable doing.
People weren't exposed who might have other interests but now might be exposed to something that's available.
Exactly. So that's been really special to be able to provide those new opportunities for folks who maybe otherwise would be interested in other things and are now looking to get involved with nature. So we did run camp in 2020. We ran camp last year, and we've been able to keep things pretty safe because we're pretty we've always been outdoors. So it's not too much to adapt for us. We've cut our numbers down a little bit, and we've definitely reduced our indoor time. So we're doing less like cooking projects and things like that and more outdoor time. But it's not a huge adjustment for us, and we like being outside. So, it's been ups and downs for sure.
Okay, well, let's talk about winter. I mean, do you have adventurous campers? Do you have winter programs that that are fully.
Right. Yeah, I did mention before we have our February vacation camp, so obviously sometimes it's a little bit cold during that camp.
A little bit.
Yeah, we've got outdoor programs in the winter as well, so we've had to adjust for sure to kind of make those as safe as possible. We have limited time indoors, so we will try to be outdoors as much as possible during those programs, which often means we have to limit the amount of time that those programs are, so maybe we're having things a little bit shorter than they would normally be. Last year for February vacation camp, where we would normally do a full day camp, we did half-day sessions instead. So that way, if we have kids outside for 2 hours in 30-degree weather, they can handle that, but maybe not 8. So, making adjustments like that, but still finding ways to get people outside because, we can bundle up, we can handle it, and winter is a great time for tracking and looking in the snow for animals that have been by, and it's a different time to see nature that not everybody necessarily gets to because people tend to stay more indoors in the winter time. So we definitely still find ways to make it work.
Right. Let me ask you this: 2 things that when I was a kid, you rarely saw in Burlington, and it was basically, pig farming community back in the 50s. You rarely saw a turkey, and you rarely saw a deer. So what are you seeing on the reservations or on your properties for an explosion of these 2 species?
Well, turkeys we see all the time. I would say if you're coming to a sanctuary, you've got a pretty good chance of seeing a turkey on any given day, especially at Drumlin Farm. They're kind of hard to get rid of, honestly. They roost on our porch, and so we'll see the signs of them the day after and definitely see big herds of turkey around all the time. Deer actually cause a problem for us at Drumlin Farm sometimes because, we're growing crops there, and so we definitely have them going into the fields and causing trouble. Well, often you'll see big shiny things hanging up in the fields, and if you see that, that's to kind of deter the deer because oftentimes those shiny like baking tins, the reusable baking or the disposable baking tins will ward them off. So definitely have deer around as well.
Yeah, well, when I left
shortage.
the house on the way here this morning, I had 4 of them. I had to chase away from my bird feeder. So
they're around. Yeah,
I guess I should hang up something shiny there. But the turkey itself was reintroduced, I think, back 45 years ago. It was almost hunted to extinction, and that seems to be a conservation success at this point, although not so much when they're jumping up on your car.
Yeah, they're very prolific. I definitely, I can say I see them in my neighborhood myself all the time, and we see them almost every morning at Drumlin Farm, so they're definitely around.
Only got 50 seconds left. What's up next? What have you got that's special that's going to be new?
Well, I mentioned before, we've got our summer programs coming up. We have our vacation week programs coming up. And then one other exciting thing that we're working on right now is we've got a youth climate leadership program as well for teenagers. So we've got a group of leaders who are working on planning a summit that we're going to have in April. And that should be lots of fun. Teens from all around the area are welcome to join us for that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. My guest has been Chloe Briskin, who is of Mass Audubon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.